Do you want to be able to dye discs like this? Let's do a quick tutorial. Let's start with supplies. First, you're going to want your disc. Premium plastic works best. Base plastic does not dye well. Some acetone, some squeeze bottles, some cocoa butter lotion. This Queen Helene is known to be the best. Some 8-inch pie tins. You want your dye. Pro Chemical and Dye works best. You can also use Ritz synthetic dye at Walmart or iDye Poly. And then some skewers, toothpicks, Q-tips, whatever you want to be able to draw designs in the dye. First, clean your discs. Even if they're new, they're going to have some oil on them from the factory, and that will not let the dye stick well. Dish soap works just fine here. Once your disc is all dry, decide if you want to keep the stamp or not. It can mess up the stamp, so especially when you're first trying out, I wouldn't suggest doing it on a stamp that you like. But if you don't want to keep the stamp, then a little bit of acetone and a paper towel will wipe it right off. As a side note, because I remember that I didn't say it in the video, this powder is very strong. So even just the powder itself will dye whatever it touches. So be very, very careful when using that. Even when you go ahead and mix it, it's super strong. So just be careful with it. I forgot to show it, but if you want to remove any of your stamp, go ahead and wash the disc afterwards just to get any of that excess acetone off. We're going to go ahead and mix the dyes now. I'm doing a bright blue, a sun yellow, and a fern. And for the sake of brevity, I'm just going to go ahead and do one of these and show you how to do that. So we're going to do the fern here. And what I have used before is about half a teaspoon of this. I do not know where my quarter of a teaspoon is, so we are going to kind of eyeball it with a full teaspoon measurement. The more that you do, you don't want to do too much, because if you do too much, then it gets too dark and the colors just start working the same. You can do too little. The colors just don't turn as vibrant. So you are going to put some of that in there. And then a little bit of acetone, and by a little bit, I mean like just that very little bit. Little bit of water. And then just shake really, really well. Okay, after we've shaken, we're going to open it back up, and this is the fun part. Well, actually, let me just take the whole lid off. We are going to go ahead and pour almost this full bottle full of lotion. So the nice part about this is we are not using this whole bottle just for this one disc. We won't need to. And so you're going to have this color for quite a while. The Queen Helene's is not too expensive. It can get up there if you're buying a ton of bottles at once, but it's not too bad. So once you go ahead and do this, we are going to go ahead and screw that lid back on and just shake again. Okay, now that we've got our colors, we are going to come to the fun part. So we're going to go ahead and we've got our disc right here, and we need a pie tin. I'm using an 8-inch pie tin. You do have to kind of shove the disc down in there. I already did it to these, but just to make sure that the disc will fit and give it enough room, but you can squeeze them out a little bit to make sure that they do fit. What you are going to do with this is you're going to get that lotion that you had before, and you're going to fill the pie tin with it. Not all the way up, but you do need to make sure you're going to press the disc down a little bit into this. So you need to make sure that all around the disc is going to be covered and the middle will not touch the bottom. So the domier the disc, the more you are going to need. Okay, once you've got as much as you want in there, you're just going to want to do a few things. We're going to tap it, and that's going to help. We can see some air bubbles starting to get in here. That is going to go ahead and help knock those air bubbles up, because they will rise to the surface during the course of you doing this, and you do not want them to do that, or else the dye is not going to show up either as dark or just not at all in the place that the air bubble rose up, because it is going to have a gap there from the air bubble. You can also go ahead, I've got the top of a spatula, but you can go ahead and flatten it because we want the surface to be as flat as possible before we apply the color. Okay, now that we've done that, we get to go ahead and apply the dye. So my goal for this, and the reason I kept part of the stamp, is I kind of want a circle starting here and radiating out from the center. We're going to see how well I can do that. I doubt that well, but we'll see what we can do. So when you're applying this, this can be kind of runny. So do be careful when you're shooting it out. It might go all over. But my goodness, I can't get that flipping top off. There we go. Yeah, so I kind of got it all over there. But you're going to go ahead, place a little bit there. And then since I am alternating colors, we're going to go green. Kind of go like that. And do be careful about putting colors next to each other that are going to mix, because if I put the blue and yellow next to each other, then they probably would just go ahead and turn into green. So what you're going to see is instead I'm placing green between the blue and yellow, which I guess already would have happened, but at least this way it is intentional. All right, once you've covered up your area with the dye, you're still going to kind of go ahead and tap it, and those layers that you made should start evening out a little bit. And once you kind of do this a little bit and get them to even out and get any more air bubbles to pop up that might be in there, you might notice, as you'll see, I have a couple of white spots in there. Those white spots, if you really want to, feel free to leave them in there, but I go ahead and put a little bit of dye in there because those white spots will turn into white spots on your disc and they will not be colored. So go ahead and fill them in, make it sure that you've got it looking pretty all the way around. Okay, once you have gone ahead and you've gotten all your little gaps filled in and you have it looking good, this is when you go ahead and take your skewers and you can start drawing lines in here. And what the lines are going to do is just kind of help give it a little bit more flow, because right now you can see I've got a lot of different thicknesses and just a lot of stuff happening here that doesn't look too smooth. So by adding kind of these flowing lines in, it helps make it look a little bit more natural. So I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of do this flower pattern, and remember I'm trying to come off of that little gas mask at the bottom of the disc. So I'm, instead of having it centered around the center of the disc, I'm going to center it around that instead. Okay, so right there, that is kind of what we're looking for. I'm going to do a little bit, kind of screwed that up a little bit, but I'm going to do a little bit of just some kind of streaks coming up here from here, because I kind of missed that as I was doing the other little part. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our disc, okay, and the best way that I've seen people hold it is like this. Put both hands and pull out. So you just kind of do it, and you're just going to kind of lightly place it in. You can roll it over, just place straight down. People will roll over to help get the air bubbles out. I'm just going to kind of place it straight down because I'm not that smart. And once you kind of get it down there, press it down, make sure you're getting it up to those edges, or else you will end up with a couple of little corners. So I can see it starting to come out. I know it's up to the edges. We are going to go ahead and we are going to let this disc sit for 24 hours. You can let it sit a little shorter, a little longer, a little shorter, not as vibrant colors, a little longer. It can affect the flight of the disc, but the colors might be a bit darker for you. Okay, now that we've gone through the basic process of how to start dyeing it, I'll go ahead and do a part 2 for how the disc actually turns out when it's done in 24 hours.